You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Lower Deck story, Mining the Mind's Mines.
Let's try saying that and enunciating it. Mining the Mind's Mines.
No, in fact, it's mining the Mind's Mines. See? It's not so easy.
Yeah. I don't have it in front of me.
No, let's call this the 3M episode.
That's right. Well, that's appropriate enough. Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. Exactly. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and of course, as you can hear, joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks. Folks, be sure to get your very own Secrets of Star Trek t-shirt by visiting sqpn.com/merch. That's get our happy faces in our Star Trek mode on there. You can. I also want to tell you about another show on the network you're sure to enjoy called Let's Science. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/science. We do have a little bit of listener feedback to share with you at the end of the show. And so stick around for that. And we have a little news as well. Some news came out on Star Trek Day, which is September 8th, which is the anniversary of when Star Trek, the original series, first premiered back in 1967. I think it's 7. 6. I always mess those up. So we have found out that the remainder or the next part of Star Trek Prodigy, the first season, which has been chopped up into little bits and scattered all over the calendar, will be
2 bits.
Yeah, it's 2 bits so far. This is the third bit. Is going to be coming out October 25th. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get 10 more episodes of that. Star Trek Picard, the third and final season, is coming on February 17th of 2023. And then indeterminate in the future, we have been told that Discovery Season 5 and Strange New World Season 2 will be out in 2023. So just a little bit of news. And you can find there's a couple trailers and some behind the scenes and a video clip. So there's a behind the scenes for Discovery and a video clip from Strange New World Season 2, which was actually kind of fun because it features Ortega in a little fun little moment. So that was a good one. So just a bit of news, but let's talk about this Lower Decks episode. That's what we're here for. Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens in this episode?
This week in Mining the Mind's Mines, the Cerritos is at a planet where a group of scientists are apparently being turned into rocks by the local silicon-based life forms. They're using psychic minds that create your fantasies and then turn you into stone when you're vulnerable. Another, more important ship has worked out a treaty between the scientists and the Silicon race, and now it's up to the Cerritos and another California-class ship, the Carlsbad, to dismantle the science station and clear up the psychic mines. Mariner, Boimler, and Rutherford beam down to clear the mines, and they are shocked by the scornful and dismissive attitude of the Carlsbad ensigns, who seem to view the Cerritos as an unserious, undisciplined party ship. To prove their efficiency, the Cerritos gang double times it to clean up the mines, while the Carlsbad ensigns work on dismantling the science station. The Cerritos gang is winning until an accident happens that damages all the psychic minds they've collected. This causes not only their fantasies to manifest, but also their nightmares and random bits of information from their minds as well. Taking refuge in a cave, they discover that all this information is being transmitted to a silicon-based system that has been fused with Federation tech. They realize that the scientists and the silicon creatures are working together, and this is all some kind of scam. They also discover that the Carlsbad ensigns actually think the Cerritos is a really cool ship, and the Lower Decks gang is legendary for their awesomeness as people who do more than just blindly follow boring orders concerning unimportant missions. Now reconciled, the two groups of ensigns fight their way out of the cave and get beamed back up. But when they enter a diplomatic meeting, Captain Freeman and the captain of the Carlsbad are having with the head scientist and the head silicon creature, they're in for a shock. Because the meeting has gone sideways and the two captains have gotten into an irrational, unending argument in which each of them insists that the other should have a special rock that the silicon creatures gave them as a token of their respect. This is something Ensign Tendi is already familiar with because she's being trained as a senior science officer, and she was assigned to get the captain's attention and be the voice of science at the diplomatic meeting. But she couldn't get the captain's attention at all once the quarrel over the rock started, not even after Tendi did a scan of the rock and got unusual readings. In the end, Tendi smashes the rock to pieces, revealing that it contains a hidden Federation listening device that was the cause of the unusual readings. The captains then realized that the scientists and the silicon creatures had been playing them. They wanted to get the rock with the listening device into a captain's ready room so that they could get classified Starfleet information that they could sell on the black market. With their plan exposed, they'll now be put on trial, and the combined lower decks crews of the Cerritos and the Carlsbad have saved the day. The end.
All right. So I like how we begin this one where we have the usual teaser, pre-credit teaser of
victim of the pre-credits.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're not, but it's sort of setting us up because it's not going to be the typical, and then the Cerrito shows up to solve the problem. So we have like this scientist who's tricked and seduced and becomes a rock under the purview of one of the rock creatures called the Scrabble, which I kind of like that they're called Scrabbles. And then Scrabble. And then after the credits, it's all been solved. This more important, like you said, the more important Starfleet ship has fixed everything, and it's the 2 California class who support vessels that are having to clean up the mess.
And this is a very familiar Starfleet ship that saved. It's the USS Hood, Excelsior class USS Hood, which we first saw all the way at Farpoint when it brought Crusher and Riker and LaForge and McCoy, the elderly Admiral McCoy, to the Enterprise D back at Farpoint.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Also, I like having the Carlsbad in this because the shtick with the California class ships is they're all named after a place in California. Right. So there is a Cerritos, California, and there is a Carlsbad, California, and I live right near Carlsbad, California. So this is sort of in my backyard.
Do we know why they chose Cerritos? Is that like one of the producers from there or something? Did we ever find out?
I don't know, but they seem to be picking minor California towns. It's not like we have the Los Angeles and the San Diego and the San Francisco, which is itself a funny shtick. Yeah.
Isn't Cerritos like a suburb, like a small suburb of Los Angeles? It's not even like an important suburb.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
I looked at it once and I thought it was like right outside of Los Angeles, but it's like right in the middle of suburbia Los Angeles. It's just there's nothing to really show for it.
Yeah, I mean, usually you name ships after important places or people or things, and it's kind of funny that these unimportant support vessels are named after relatively small towns that really aren't all that important in the grand scheme of things. So that is funny. So Ransom
if they ever bring on the El Cajon, I'll be really excited.
I gotta say that's kind of a funny name, so it's got to show up. I'm just saying, it's Ransom, first officer, has been assigned the task of dealing with, the cleanup on the surface. And he's sort of dismissive of the outpost scientists as weird because all these scientists on the frontier, they want to explore space, but not by being cool like us Starfleet hotshots. They want to be scientists. I mean, what's with that? I just thought it was really, really good. That really plays into Ransom's attitudes. So, as you mentioned, these psychic minds will read your thoughts, bring your fantasies to life, and in the process turn you to stone. And for some reason, it's not the native creature's job to clean up the minds. It's Starfleet's job. Because, why not? You mentioned that Tendi's in senior science officer training, and she's been assigned a mentor for that, but not one of the science officers. It's the ship's counselor, the bird guy, Dr. Miglimo. Miglimo?
I see. I think they say it Miglimo on the show, but it looks Italianate, and so I want to soften the G and try to pronounce Miglimo or something like that.
That's what I do. Yeah, that's my natural inclination. In any case, it's his first time being a mentor for senior science officer training. He hasn't even really read the manual.
I love it. He skims the manual. I feel that so hard. That's so bad. I mean, that's
well, it's like there's a lot of Vulcan stuff. Yeah, they really ought to edit this because there's a lot of that Vulcan stuff. Tendi just wants to cut to the test because that's her, right? She's studied so much. She thinks she needs to learn. He thinks she needs to learn how to cut through captain's big egos. That's the job of a senior science officer, by being the voice of science. I really feel like this is a 2020 thing. I don't know. Like, I feel like this is the subtext of this is like the science guy's job is to cut through the captain's big ego. Where are we? Yeah. Heard that before. So yeah, and then we have the other California class ship, the Carlsbad. They're hostile to the Cerritos crew at first because they have a reputation. Mm-hmm. Who is
and they're overcompensating for their own insecurities,
right?
Yeah, and then of course you hear reputation, and me thought as bad reputation, and it turns out it's actually the other way around, that they're admired, and they actually feel uncomfortable around the Cerritos crew because they're so admired.
Right.
So they're running them down to kind of justify and inflate their own position because of how insecure they are.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in charge of the away team mission is Commander Steve Stevens, who is this funny, like, toady to Ransom. He's like, Ransom's my best friend. Like, we're senior officers together. And, like, he's just so, like, brown-noser for Ransom.
We have a sacred bond. And Ransom in private is like, don't tell people we have a sacred bond.
He's like, dude, like, dial it back a little. So Rutherford, so they're having to pick up these little green balls, basically, that's what they are, the mines.
And green balls.
Yeah. And Rutherford starts getting one of these fantasies, and when they get it, it's like supposed to wear off within, a few hours or days, like is the way they put it, depending on how strong it is. And of course, Rutherford's fantasy is of Dr. Leah Brahms.
Yay, yes. Leah Brahms back on the team. Nice to see her again.
Voiced by Susan Gibney herself.
Yeah. She's like destined to be fallen in love with, but not her for real.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what Geordi did in the Next Gen series, and now it's what Rutherford does.
Yeah, I do like this callback. Like, if for some reason, Starfleet engineers, they just love Leah Brahms. They've, she's like the pinup girl for Starfleet engineers.
So you got looks and brains. I mean, what more do you need, right?
I guess so. So then. Boimler's fantasy is an admiral who shows up on a floating motorcycle with a sidecar, calling him to duty to fight the Borg. Mariner's like, your fantasy is riding in the sidecar? He's like, driving is scary. I'm a natural passenger. Yeah. I thought that was great. Oh, man. Mariner's fantasy is one of the other officers, Jennifer, I think it is, the Andorian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That she's had a tense relationship with in the past.
Yeah. And in fact, that there's some sort of attraction between them, which is, I think, a new aspect that they're throwing out on
that's new.
Mariner.
They kind of hinted at it at the end of season 2. It was kind of they kind of had a reconciliation and started to develop a relationship, at least a friendship, at the end of season 2.
Right. So meanwhile, the Cerritos lower decks crew wants to compete with the Carlsbad lower decks crew and show them up by cleaning up the mines faster than they can dismantle the outpost. In fact, the way they clean up the mines is like they're dunking basketballs, basically. Yeah. It's into this tube. And Stevens is like, hey, slow down. You're going too fast. It's, we need to be careful with these things. And the way they get him to agree to speed up is because he has his bro crush on Ransom. They tell him that the Carlsbad crew is mocking Ransom. So he's like, what? And he gets a little too amped up to show them up and ends up breaking the machine that they've been putting the mines into and scattering them everywhere and causing this huge, not fantasy, but huge illusion to grow of a giant flying space
Kukulkan
dragon.
Kukulkan from it's the Middle American god.
Right.
And it originally appeared in Star Trek the Animated Series. And so this is a callback to the animated series to have Kukulkan attacking again.
Right.
And also, in addition to Kukulkan, there's a giant Borg snake
Yeah.
And there are Klingon Batleth clowns.
Batleth for arms.
Batleth for arms, yeah.
And then one of the California raisins with tentacles. I don't know if you had people remember that from the 80s.
I didn't realize it was a California raisin, but okay. It is a squirming purple blob with tentacles.
It kind of read to me as one of the California raisins.
It probably was. That's going on with the Kelly class ships. That makes sense.
And then Jennifer, the Andorian lieutenant, is then turned into possessive Andorian wolf girlfriend, which I
want to settle down with you and have a life together.
Yeah, right. So, like you said, they retreat into the cave and collapse the cave, and that's where they discover this combined silicate creature, Starfleet or Federation science communications place. And they're trying to contact the Cerritos or the Carlsbad and are unable. And that's when Mariner says, "It's not a real day in Starfleet unless comms are blocked."
Yeah, I'm really glad that they hung a lantern on that. That and transporter failures, which they have at the same moment.
Yes.
I guess maybe not, because they could have beamed out of the cave. They just didn't have the ability to call for that.
Exactly. Right. But I do. That's one of the things I like about the series is they call out all of the tropes, the cliches, all the ways in which the plots are kind of contrived in order to, amp the drama in these stories. So that was fun. When we have this moment of revelation, when the Carlsbad crew reveals that they think the Cerritos crew is cool, not bad. They tell them, "Oh no, the Cerritos is the Enterprise of the support class ships," which is a great line, because isn't this really what Lower Decks is about? It's about this crew who are kind of nobodies, but they get into all these awkward situations where everything turns out okay, and they're cool because of it. So I like that. Meanwhile.
And then they're talking about all the shenanigans that the Cerritos have gotten into, shenanigans. Mariner's like, "What shenanigans?" And then Boimler and Rutherford start rattling off that they tussled the Magados, tussled with Pakleds twice. Klingons took off in the ship and he was drunk, scared the crap out of the drill instructor. And was there a time travel thing?
Right. Something about the Pakleds, yeah.
But when the Carlsbad crew recounts their history, it's all portrayed as these were amazing, great things that they did.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it was them just often managing to get out of the things that they screwed up themselves. Yeah, exactly. Which is funny. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Tendi has gone to Dr. Ta'ana because she's Dr. McLemo's, advice about getting the captain's attention has sort of backfired. Like, she tried to barge into this negotiation or treaty signing and got rebuffed by Captain Freeman. So Ta'ana, basically tells Tendi, "Look, when you're in these situations, you can't just assume that you're going to succeed. You have to be willing to screw up before you can succeed." That's really what she says. Is like, you really have to be willing to mess things up in order to really, because if you're going to go on into things too cautiously, you're never going to get that opportunity to shine. Which is kind of what last episode was about, with Boimler being told, you're playing it too safe. You need to take some rest.
By Tendi.
Yep. Right. So kind of an interesting turnaround for her. Although I have to say, by the way, the situation that Dr. Ta'ana was in with the crewman who was getting treated for having the fish digesting his foot.
Yeah.
Look, I'm trying not to tell this guy I have to amputate his foot and grow him a new one. So what? He's from the bed. What's going on? Yeah. That was good. So we are told that we were revealed to us that the outpost scientists and the Scrubble are working together to steal classified data from their minds. That's what these psychic minds are doing. So apparently what happened is once the scientists realized what the psychic minds were, they started talking to the Scrubble and came up with this idea about, mining people's minds for information that they could then sell on the black market. So they're going to steal classified data, and this Scrubble gift of this pyramid-shaped rock was to be hidden in the captain's office and used to mine her mind, for this classified data.
And she tries to, not knowing that, she tries to give it to the captain of the Carlsbad, and they get in this SpongeBob level ridiculous, no, you take it, battle that just never ends.
Yeah,
until Tendi eventually smashes it and find the tracker.
So the reason Freeman is trying to get the other captain to get is because he's younger. He's a young hotshot.
Yeah, they have this tension between each other where she's threatened by him as the rising generation and wants to prove herself and her superiority as the experienced one, whereas he has the reverse of he wants to prove himself and kind of push her down as the old school way of doing things.
Right. So as things wrap up, I forgot to mention Stevens at one point got turned to stone and knocked over and his arms broken off. So you kind of thought he was dead, but he wasn't dead. He was just brain dead for 10 minutes. His mind's kind of messed up. And now he's walking around with his arms in 2 casts.
Yeah, I don't think he was brain dead. I think he was really dead because when he's in the bar at the end and they're talking, he starts talking about, and he gets cut off. So we don't hear him say the whole thing, but he starts talking about seeing a koala sitting on a black mountain. And that's exactly what Shax revealed is part of the return from death process.
Oh.
It involves a koala and a black mountain.
And that also goes to the ascendancy episode where the lieutenant ascends. He says, "Why is there a koala and why is he smiling?"
Right. He's dying. He's not ascending. Right. It's because it's a drop bear. So, and then we talk at the end. We're in the lounge and they're sitting around with the Carlsbad crew who talk about living up to their reputations. Noting that while they may not be recognized across the fleet, the Cerritos is among the most famous of her class. And they tell the only reputation that's questionable is that of Boimler, who's often seen as a tiny comedic robot who always gets into trouble. And Boimler's like, "Tell people I'm not a robot. Tell people I'm not a robot.
I want to be a real person.
I just want to be a man." Which, of course, Boimler. Although we in what was it, the end of the first season, we had seen that Boimler in the future actually has a giant statue made of him. In one of the possible features. So
interestingly, this week I was rewatching the very first episode of Lower Decks, and it begins with a sequence. I remembered it in hindsight, but I had initially forgotten about exactly the first moment. It's Boimler re-recording a captain's log in his own voice.
Oh.
And Mariner in a closet, and Mariner stumbles in on him, and they brought that back just last episode with the beginning of season 3 hinging on him having re-recorded the captain's logs in his own voice.
Right. Oh, that's true. They do mine their own stories like that. It is fun. It pays to keep track of this sort of stuff. So, and that's where we end the episode. Father Cory, other notes on this episode?
Nothing here.
Jimmy?
So I liked the Lower Decks crew from the Carlsbad. There's 3 of them, just like we have 3 of our Lower Deckers down on the planet. They're led by a human woman named Kearns. And then there's a guy, he looks human, but he's got webbing between his fingers. And my first thought was, maybe he's from the planet Argo, but no, the Argo people look different than he did. They're from the animated series. But there's an episode where Kirk and Spock get sort of hybridized with Argo people and they get webbing between their fingers. What this guy actually is a Zaldan. And we ran into the Zaldan in an early Next Generation episode where Wesley was applying for Starfleet Academy, and part of the test was he bumped into a guy in the hallway who had webbing between his fingers. And when the guy, started yelling at him, Wesley yelled back because he realized this guy is from Zaldan, Zaldanian, I guess. And they view politeness as a phony excuse to cover up and waste time. And they prefer directness. And so by yelling at the guy, Wesley had the correct response and the guy liked him and Wesley passed the test. So this guy is named Cordy, and he's from Zaldan. So that was nice to see. And then they have a Tellarite, and the Tellarite has a remarkably human name. His name is Young.
And at one point he gets injured and says, "I think I pulled my dominant groin." Which that's an interesting aspect of Tellarite biology. Yeah, there's a lot of little fun bits in there where you get the usual lines. I like Tendi and Miglimo in the lounge at the beginning, where Miglimo is ordering, millet and offering her worms to eat and that sort of thing. Garçon, one more round of millet and cut me off after that. That sort of thing. So he's very birdish. Excellent. So I think that does it for our discussion of mining the mind's mines. Let's talk about our feedback. Our feedback comes from last episode, 224, The Least Dangerous Game. And Paul, he's one of our patrons, and I should remember how to pronounce his name because I had to do it once before, but Paul Skalenic via YouTube, who writes, "Great show as always. I believe Doug Drexler, artist for multiple Trek series, sculpted the statue of Cochrane pointing to the sky as a set piece for Captain Archer's quarters on Enterprise."
Yes.
Sadly, his wife, Dorothy Druder, the true chef on Enterprise, recently passed a couple months ago. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. Thank you for pointing that out, Paul. We appreciate that.
I never even noticed that there had been a statue in his quarters on Enterprise, but
he's got it on a shelf.
I'll have to look for that next time.
Yep.
Awesome. So that'll do it for us. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Star Trek, including Pete P., Father Eric C., Father Michael D., Joe M., and John F. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So we'd love to hear what you think of Mining the Mind's Mines. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. And you can send an email to trek@sqpn.com or join us at our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next new episode of Lower Decks. And until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, I'm afraid my brain is going to explode with science.